guys, and welcome back to another video. One of the common things that happens with anxiety is you ask yourself why. Why do I feel this way? What's going on with me? What's happened? Why can I suddenly not cope in situations where I could cope? It's a pretty understandable question, actually, and I didn't understand it for a very long time, and actually to some extent I still don't. Anxiety is a fight or flight reaction. If we strip it back to its basics. Anxiety is a survival instinct. So if you were in the wild and you noticed a lion, you would start to feel anxious. And that anxiety would help you either fight that lion if you have to, or help you run away. So it would build up that adrenaline so that you can do something that ordinarily, if you're calm, you just can't do. You just wouldn't have the strength, you wouldn't have the speed. But anxiety actually helps you do that. So it's a wonderful thing. It's evolution. It's how we survive. Now, everybody will feel anxious at some point in their lives, but the problem comes now is that we don't have the same physical issues. If you're walking down a street late at night and you notice some creepy person walking nearby, you'll feel anxious, and that's good, because that means you're equipped to deal with that situation. But what happens now is some of the stuff that makes us anxious is more psychological. So it will be losing a job. It will be preparing for an exam. It will be some sort of conflict. And your brain doesn't really know the difference between a physical threat and a psychological threat. So it gives you the same ability it would give you physically. So if you have a conflict and you get anxious, it will give you that adrenaline you need to either run away or fight. But that's not what we do now. We use our words. We talk to each other. So when we feel anxious, we don't really know what to do with it. We can't get rid of that extra energy. Now, that only really becomes a problem when it starts to happen regularly. So going back to the fundamentals of this video, which is why do we get anxious? It's because something is threatening us. And it's up to us to try and analyse what that is. For a long time, I really couldn't figure it out. Because for me, it started in an exam, and then you go to the logic and you say, well, it's exam anxiety. But it wasn't, because then it started happening in certain classes. And you think, maybe I have a problem with this subject, but I don't know why. Maybe it's the people that are in the class. And I thought, again, can't be these people because I have other classes with them. So it took me a long time, and then I started to realise that silent situations were really difficult for me to be in. And that then made sense why certain classes would be more difficult, exams would be more difficult. So that kind of made it, I can't say easier to deal with, because it wasn't easier to deal with, but it gave me peace of mind, understanding why I was having issues. And then you could say, well, why did silence become an issue? My guess for a long time was to do with like scary films or just pop culture saying that silence is bad. When anything goes silent, you know it's because of a stressful reason, whether that's an exam or you're about to get scared by something, or it's like an anticipation moment. And I think that was, for me, what was a big issue. Again, it can be being around people. A lot of people with social anxiety, their threat is being judged. And that's totally understandable, because you don't want to be judged. You don't know what the consequences of that judgment are. And It makes sense that you would worry about it, but then it escalates into you become anxious about it and then you can't really be around people. So it's worth figuring out in which situations you're anxious and what the common factor is. Is it silence? Is it people? Is it maybe a certain place? So like heights, for example, you might feel fine on the ground floor of a shop, but on the second floor you might have a problem. You might have a problem in lifts, you might have a problem flying, and all of that could be related to heights. When you understand why you feel anxious, it gives you an opportunity to find ways to challenge yourself without overwhelming yourself. And that's what really makes the biggest difference, especially in the starting phases when things are just too difficult. So if silence is an issue for you, or being around people in silence, which is a more specific thing, like if I was by myself and it was just completely quiet, it wouldn't be that bad, but if it was with people, it was awful for me. Then you could say, well, okay, I'll try and go to a library for 5 minutes, because then there's no pressure there at a library. Like, you can leave whenever you want, and you can keep practicing like that, and eventually the idea is that by not avoiding it and by tackling it, your brain will start to realise that it isn't actually a threat. One of the big reasons that anxiety can escalate into something unmanageable is because you start to avoid it if you don't realise what it is, right? So if you're super uncomfortable in a situation and you leave, then you'll feel better and you go, oh, great, problem solved. But the next time you go into that situation, your brain will pick up quickly and go, oh, no, we can't be here, we gotta go. And then it will escalate. I don't know exactly if that's what happened to me, because one of my issues with that theory was I never would have had an anxiety disorder in the first place, because it started in school and I never had a problem in school before. And it was the same school, same people. There was no real reason that should have changed, except personal circumstances. And this is the next part. So there might be a situation that triggers that didn't used to trigger. And the reason for that normally is when you really become overwhelmed. So too many things are going on in your life, too many things have happened, and there's just one final thing that stresses you out too much, and then it's like a switch. A great metaphor for it is like having a glass, and each little stressful thing is water, and you keep putting the water in, and at one point it will overflow. And that overflowing is when anxiety can develop, because your brain just cannot cope with that amount of stress anymore. Which is why if you start to feel anxious without actually having an anxiety disorder, make sure you're bringing fun things into your life. Make sure you're bringing something relaxing. So if you have a really stressful day at work, when you come home, do something to chill yourself out. Watch film, go out to the pub, go for a bike ride. I don't know, it depends what you enjoy. Everybody's different. It might be making music, it could be taking photos, or it could just be like a relaxing bath. But the point is that you end the day on a good note. So you have a bad day and you finish it with something good, rather than saying, oh no, now I need to go and do it all again tomorrow. That kind of balance is what's so important. And recently I decided that, okay, we have a working week for a reason, right? We accept, especially through education, that we might have to work overtime. So we work in school, then we have homework, then we have to do assignments on weekends, and it's like never ending. And it's similar with work. You know, some people have one job, but some people have two jobs. So you get used to the fact, well, actually I have to constantly be productive, I have to constantly do things. But actually, you need to make sure that you include fun in your life. Otherwise it's not worth it. You're not emptying that glass out ever. So you need to give yourself time to unwind and actually live your life in an enjoyable way. whether it's for half an hour a day, a couple of hours a day, or in my case, what I started to do was say, okay, I will work on what I need to work on and push myself as hard as I need to push myself Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday is when I'm gonna do what I enjoy, whether that's taking photos, making music, reading, writing, whatever it is. I will dedicate some time, if not the whole weekend, to just taking a break. Because it's difficult to find a balance during the day. So you might have a day in the week where, yeah, you can come home from work and leave work at the door, but often you can't. You know, there'll be something playing on your mind, or you'll have to work through the night, and things happen that you can't really predict. So yes, you should still do something fun in the day, but it might only be half an hour. But if you make sure you give yourself plenty of time to relax at some point in the week. So if you work weekends, it might have to be a Tuesday or a Wednesday that you relax. But it's so important to do so that it doesn't escalate into anxiety that's totally unmanageable. And it's easy to say, I know, because we all have different schedules, we all have different commitments. But look at it like this: if you don't give yourself the time and you do become overwhelmed, you'll reach breaking point where actually you can't do anything then. And I'm speaking from experience here, that it happens that you push yourself and you say, oh, I can't take a break, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, then move on to this project, oh, I'll watch a film later and whatever, that'll be it for the week. But you will reach a point where you actually just can't function anymore. Your brain can't take it and it starts to just shut down. You can't go out, you can't see people, you can't think straight. And then what have you really achieved? Not a lot. Well, it was a pretty intense note to leave it on, but I hope that it's made it clear where anxiety comes from and why you might feel anxious, as well as how to prevent it escalating into something unmanageable and really difficult. Let me know in the comments your experience with anxiety, or if you know of any triggers, and leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.